for history. This Midwestern housewife, like a lot of white Americans, does not think the Negro should present history's bill to her.
We hear so much about the slavery. 300 years ago, our grandfathers were slaves, or 200 years ago, our grandfathers were slaves. Well, for God's sakes, did we have anything to do with that? I had no part in it. I had no slaves. My folks didn't. My grandparents didn't. Are they blaming us for what happened 3 years ago? Let's forget the past. Think of the future. Build up the future. And why keep hemming and hawing over the same thing over and over and over again? And they say, you must give me land because my grandfather was a slave. Well, then I would say, for God's sakes, find the man who had your grandfather as a slave and then demand the land from him. Don't bother me because I had no part of it.
Across the country, we asked whites whether the main reason Negroes had not made more progress was because of racial discrimination or because Negroes have not worked hard enough. This lawyer expressed a view we heard most often.
We find there is a reluctance upon the part of too many Negroes, particularly among the young, to take the hard and remunerative jobs that must be necessary to earn a living. There is a feeling that for some reason somebody owes them a living.
Just about half of whites in our survey said the Negro has not made more progress because he has not worked hard enough. Only 15% blames discrimination. Some had no opinion.
I feel that they're basically lazy when this summer, for example, opportunity was given to them to better themselves in getting as many jobs as possible in various fields of retail, wholesale, and they don't take the full advantage of accepting the responsibility of going out for these jobs. They feel that they're not good enough for them.
About half of whites agreed with this woman, that Negroes tend to be lazy more than whites. And this woman mentioned another charge against Negroes, that they have low morals.
Their sex problem, let's face it now, how many white people have 10 illegitimate children? Very few. Very few. This seems to be a trend with them. And I often wondered, what happens to these here men who follow these children? Are they busy making babies elsewhere, or are they busy in the civil rights march yelling for the civil rights?
And 4 out of 10 whites in our survey agreed that Negroes, more than whites, have low moral standards. However, half or more of whites disagree with some of the views you have just heard. For example, they reject the idea that Negroes are more likely than whites to have low morals. But for the moment, we're concentrating on attitudes opposed to racial integration. In Chicago, we talked with a group of whites who call themselves lower middle class. They are worried about Negroes moving into their neighborhood.
And they are not responsible citizens. And so they live like we are. We don't want them.
I want to live with me, tell you the truth. Whether they take care of it or not, I want to live with them. Because they ran away from home. And if I wanted to live with them, I wouldn't be paying high taxes like I am. I would stay where I was.
More than half of whites in our survey believe Negroes are more likely than whites to run down their own neighborhoods.
In the South, they throw the garbage out of the window and the pigs come and eat it. Here they throw the garbage out of the window and no pigs come and eat it.
In general, are Negroes as civilized as whites? 43% of whites said no, Negroes are not as civilized.
It's this image that he's building. They act like savages, like animals. They kill each other, they rape, they rob. When there's a riot, well, they wouldn't burn their own places. They had signs all over. Soul Brother. It made no difference. They robbed, raped, plundered, looted their own people.
What about the way Negroes care for their children? About 1/4 of whites say that Negroes are less likely than whites to take good care of their children.
The colored woman does not take care of her child, does not help to educate this child. There's no problem about it. They're ADC. The more children they can have, the more money they get to go out and play the lottery. They get more money to go out and drink a little more gin. But to take care of their children, put a pair of shoes on them. I blame the mother for not educating her child when they're born, from the day they're born till the day they grow up.
Lower intelligence. 1 out of 4 whites also believe Negro children are more likely to hold back the class.
When you were in school, your mother made sure you did your homework before you went out. A colored child, mother and father don't care if they ever do their homework.
And I feel that this is why the white child is so much more superior to the colored. And not because the colored child doesn't want to learn. It's because there's nobody behind him pushing him.
Lower intelligence. About 1 white in 7 agrees that Negroes have lower intelligence at birth than whites.
We're not all created equal. And as far as intelligence, there is a little book called Breeding Down, and it says in there where the colored is born with an IQ, not born, but it develops, to 80 plus, and the white is 90 and up.
About half of whites polled said they do not think most fellow whites want the Negro to have equality.
They don't desire an education of our type. They have different music. They have a different way of dressing. They have different schools or different churches. Their religion is different. Everything is different.
Sympathetic to the Negro, 38% of whites said they do not think other whites are sympathetic to the problems of the Negro.
I don't want to help them. I don't want to help them. And I don't want them living next door to me for the simple reason that there might be a lot of nice ones, but I got 4 kids, and I don't want them growing up with colored next door to them. Because it's a proven fact. They grow up, they think nothing of each other, they play together. Pretty soon they're in their teens, they start dating, and pretty soon they're marrying. I don't want my kids marrying a colored person.
We have just heard the views of Lisher. Many whites who might be against a complete split between the races nonetheless have no desire to see the Negroes come closer than they are now. For example, about half the whites said they would object to housing for Negro families in present all-white neighborhoods. And 4 out of 10 whites say they would object to busing Negro students to better schools. We found when it comes to ways for the Negro to protest for what he wants, most whites are against Negro picketing or boycotting. In fact, against anything other than holding a protest meeting. When Negroes riot in our ghettos, what is to blame? The causes mentioned most often by whites have to do with ghetto conditions. But on the other hand, great numbers of whites say it is largely because of a communist plot, or that it's mostly young kids looking for excitement, or that it's a way for Negroes to steal things and not get caught. More than a third of whites say that when a riot occurs, it would be a good idea for police to shoot 1 or 2 rioters as examples to the rest.
Shoot to kill. If they're old enough to violate law, shoot him. If it's my own kid, I say shoot him. He deserves it. He should obey the law. If there's laws for us, there's laws for Negroes. Let them start obeying them.
He should be shot. That's the only way we can stop him. I can't see where the policeman has to stand there and just hold his gun in his hand. And for what? They're breaking the law, aren't they?
To review, what can we conclude about the degrees of white opposition to equality and integration for the Negro? About half of the whites in our survey say they do not believe most whites want equality. About 1/2 of whites deny that discrimination is the main reason for holding back the Negro. About 1/2 of whites say they do not want Negro families moving into all-white neighborhoods. What about feelings of superiority to the Negro? About 14% of whites say that whites are born innately superior to Negroes, and about 43% of whites say the Negro is not as civilized as whites. What about attitudes that may reflect a degree of white hostility? About 1/3 of whites believe that 1 or 2 rioters, and rioters today for the most part means Negro, should be shot as an example to the rest, meaning immediate punishment without due process of law, contrary to American tradition.